We'll see, because I don't trust it. It says we're live. Hello, live universe. Hello, internet. Spotify, wherever you're listening.
I'm actually going to...
It's Modern Relics. I'm Angel. He's lucky we're live in the house again. It's happening.
I'm here and it's warm. Yeah, it says we're live.
How is that, by the way? The temperature?
I'm loving it. I'm always a fan of hotter weather. I always have been. So, like, I was actually looking forward to coming down. And even though it's, you know, in the 80s and 90s up in Idaho right now, like, the idea of it cresting 100 is actually something that I'm weirdly looking forward to, which a lot of people think I'm crazy, but I actually enjoy getting my batteries charged by the big orange Daystar.
Speaking of the big orange Daystar,
yeah,
we launched some bombs at Iran.
Wow, that was quite the transition.
Just kidding. No, I dig it too. I've said before, but like when it gets to cartoon levels of hot, when you're over 110, it's kind of miserable to be out there. But really, it's the UV index. Like when it gets 99 plus, you're just like, you feel like you're crisping.
Yeah.
But the temperature is usually not too unbearable unless you're kind of stuck in it. But I always look forward to coming back, especially from Seattle, where it's like wet and you can definitely feel the humidity. Yeah. Like even though it's never hot enough to like feel it when you're living there, it sucks when you go there and then come back to uber dry, ultra, arid climate. So But yeah, no problems with rental cars this time. Everything's smooth sailing.
Everything's smooth sailing.
Had a great birthday. Nothing happened there.
Yeah, I have a story.
Yeah, what happened?
So I had a good week. I had a good Father's Day. Everything was going really well. And then on my birthday, which was Monday, I turned the clock over to 47. But I woke up. Aaron had gone to the gym, and the dogs typically sleep on the bed with me until I get up or she gets home, one or the other. And I woke up to our newer dog. She's still kind of a puppy, 11 months old or so. And she let out a yip, and she's known for making kind of weird noises when she is wanting something. And I groggily looked up and I was like, "Hey, quiet, I'm sleeping." And she just looked at me. And then I closed my eyes, and the next noise she makes is an ungodly horking that ends up spilling out upon my bed. So I had to wake up and strip the bed of the sheets, and I'm like, great. It's the perfect way to wake up 7:30 in the morning. So I go sit out on the couch after I clean that up, and for the most part, the rest of the day was relaxed, unplanned. Aaron made me a wonderful breakfast, and it was great. And then, and there wasn't really a whole lot going on for the rest of the day. We had decided to make dinner plans, but on a Monday, it's like, what are you going to do, right? So, and I'd rather just hang out. So I got some cool stuff. The kids both got me really neat things, and Aaron got me a new lazy boy chair that now is Dad's chair, so it's like my captain chair, which I've decided that it's because it rotates around much like a Star Trek captain chair, and so it's my Captain Kirk chair, not my Captain Picard chair, because I made Aaron agree that, because I said my Captain Kirk chair, she's all, "Don't you mean Captain Picard?" And I was like,
we go.
No, I don't mean Captain Picard. I mean Captain Kirk, the OG.
Did you guys meet in the middle with that weird Scott Bakula version?
No. He wasn't even on the table. And Scott Bakula belongs in his time travel show, Quantum Leap.
In Deep Space Quantum Leap.
Yeah. But that being said, she goes, "Well, your hairline more..."
No.
Yeah, she went there.
She had to go there.
Yeah.
On your birthday?
On my birthday. Yeah. How dare her? More resembles that of Picard rather than Kirk. I was like, yes, but do we judge our captains by their hairline or their charisma? And she went, ooh, fair. I was like, this is my Captain Kirk chair. And she went, okay, fair, solid argument.
I have a better idea.
Okay.
Like when she's gone and you're not, and you have time to craft this.
Okay.
When she gets home, what she should see is your Kirk chair in the middle of the living room
Oh, it already is.
with like a background bar where she has an earpiece and can sit on the back rail behind you. And then the two children's ensign desks are much lower than yours where you can lord over them in your swivel chair and they're up front. And then the TV screen can be in front of that.
It's already centered in the center of the room, which is great. So I can spin around and see everything, right? So all I really need is a platform in the center of the room to put this thing on.
I think this is great.
Yeah, and then maybe build a couple of props for them. I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, so anyway, that went really well. And then...
So when you said captain's chair, I thought you meant like a really badass like lawn chair type of thing, but this is an actual piece of furniture.
Yes.
That's great.
And it's got heat, it vibrates, it does massage stuff. Like, it's great. It's a wonderful chair.
Brilliant.
That being said, I needed to, because I was coming down here the following day, so I needed to run a few errands. I needed to go to the banks, I needed to go pack up my stuff over at the shop, and my son wanted to come with me just to hang out, and but when we're going anywhere for the last 6 months to a year, if we're going anywhere, he has his learner's permit.
Yeah.
And he's old enough to be licensed, but we just haven't gotten there yet. And I give him, the reins, and he drives, and he's great. It has been for a while. Well, one of the things that I needed to do was on my birthday, I got to pay off the $18,000 and $12,000 loans on both mine and my wife's car on the same day.
Yeah.
Both cars paid off in full.
Congrats.
Standing up high, going, I don't have car payments anymore. Did it, done, complete. After a couple of hours of driving around, we decided to go pick up some coffee drinks or Red Bull drinks or whatever from one of the local coffee stands. Decided to do that. And on our way out, and we were probably, half a mile to a mile away from our house. We had to pass it to get there. And on the way out, my son comes out of the driveway and then gets onto the main road and does a fluid job. It wasn't like he was jumpy or jolty or anything like that. But one of the drinks spilled, started to tip over, started to spill, and I went to go catch it. And I'm in the passenger seat, went to go catch it. And by doing so, the other ones all went in other directions.
Yeah.
And Oliver, not having the skill sets yet to handle such a panicked situation, right? He went to help and jerked the wheel by leaning over, and my car, the next thing I know, because I'm getting completely covered on 4 different drinks, the next thing I know, we are airborne because he has taken us over the curb and into the drainage ditch.
Yeah.
And then launches us up and then lands onto the sidewalk, the walking path of sidewalk. We come to a complete stop, and I completely snap. And there is a stream of obscenities coming out of me going, are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
I paid this thing off 2 hours ago and you just wrecked my car? And just broke into a complete tirade and get out. And like, switch seats. And I had to drive my car on 2 busted rims, the driver's side rims, both of them. Tires completely flat, and one of the rims is the front rim is completely just destroyed. Chunks of it are falling off. and I had to drive it down the sidewalk to the adjacent apartment complex where a bunch of witnesses watched the whole thing happen.
Oh, yeah.
And so, but I kept those wheels on the grass, and it was still like crunchy, and like pull in, cops show up. Fortunately for Oliver, and he got real later on that evening because our dinner plans had been ruined, so we ended up going to Buffalo Wild Wings. And after, you know, his initial like crying and being upset and I'm so sorry, Dad, and you know, through all of those emotions, the turd ended up getting a little cocky with the jokes about it a little too soon. It started because there was no damage. Like he managed not to hit like a big metal pole and then a wooden telephone pole, and even managed not to hit like the sprinkler.
He's really threading the needle on that one.
That was the term he used.
Yeah.
He's like, threading the needle, Dad. I was like, no. Let's not act as if this was an act of skill.
Calm yourself, Parnelli Jones. This is,
Yeah.
You're not sponsored by a race team. This shit costs money.
Yeah. And so, but fortunately, it did not end up doing any city damage, so I didn't get cited for any of that. The cop was just like, yep, no, looks good. You just hit some grass and weeds, which should have been mowed down anyway. Thanks for helping. And got the tow truck, got it back, and fortunately my sister let us borrow one of her vehicles while I was, down here because I had to leave the next day. And so hopefully insurance is going to cover all of it. But, man.
Yeah, I hope so too. That's number one. I'm sorry, that sucks. Number two, I feel like a lot of my life reflection has happened at Buffalo Wild Wings, at B-Dubs, where it's like everything falls apart, but that's where I end up. So it's a great restaurant for that. But
it's a place of solace.
Nobody wants to be there, but they've all ended up there.
But the misery is that people go in there with is
Are you going to make the child wear some sort of bubble wrap or helmets or anything for
a dunce cap?
Given period of time, like until you can figure out directions between steering wheel hand and head. I've got horse blinders for you, son.
His mother has definitely made it very clear that he will not live this down anytime soon.
No.
So she is going to relive this over and over and over again. So he's already kind of mentally and emotionally preparing himself for years of abuse on this one.
Did you draw up fake adoption papers or anything like that?
Right. But he, so we've already told him you're paying the deductible. And he goes, that's fair. And also by the time I get home, if we get the car back from the repair shop, you're detailing it down to the last little detail. I want this thing. I want to be able to eat off the floorboards.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, yeah, no, that's fair. So, this didn't help his case. I mean, his mother has been dragging her feet on him getting a license.
Yeah.
And this did not help his cause.
Set him back a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We took a few steps backwards on this.
Yeah.
Oof.
So the next time you're online with him, or he's bugging you online, let's phrase it that way. The next time he's bugging you online, give him some grief for it, because he has it coming.
Yeah.
But my initial blow up was a big bang.
This fear of God suddenly.
But I realized that he needed to know that accidents happen and that I'm not mad.
Right.
And so I was like, dude, now you just know this is a lesson.
Yeah, I mean,
you know that in a blink of an eye, if you're not paying attention, that's something like this can happen. So
that's the point to get across. That, and like if nobody's injured, that'd have been a different response, obviously, if like a bone is sticking out of your throat or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's right. Hopefully, I'm sure he connected those dots.
Yes. Yes, he did. So, but yeah, so that was right before I came down here. Now, everything since I've been down here, my flight was great.
Nice.
My rental was easy. And yeah, so spent a little time. Sorry, folks, that we did not come on last night. We did plan on it, but I think I was in a little bit of a brain drain. and
I surely was.
and I had a local from where I'm from, a local meeting that was being live streamed specifically for me so that I could watch it at pretty much the same time. And also, I really just wanted to get in a hot tub. So Angel got the hot tub ready, and we just kind of shot the breeze out there instead. And but yeah, you are actually going to be leaving tomorrow, and then leaving me here again.
Sadly, that's how it worked out. Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm going to be back Sunday, and
You're a big boy.
You'll be here, which will be good news because we'll find some fun stuff to do.
Yeah.
Because I'll be on vacation, which is great. But yeah, I have to go to Seattle. I have to take care of life and times up there for a couple of days. I will run into friend of the podcast, Paul. So it'll be nice to catch up with Paul.
I miss Paul.
He's a blast.
Yeah.
In person all the time.
Yeah.
Like there's never not a time where Paul is.
There's few
awesome.
people on the planet that have the positive energy that Paul has all the time. He brings a positive joy wherever
in your life, in your friend group, throughout history. I think all of us have one. There's the guy that can sometimes fall backwards into a brilliant situation, and other times just it's like you find pennies on the beach and he unearths a 6-carat diamond. You're like, wow, Paul has a way of making like all of life just pretty chill, where stuff just works out. Like, like we're just going to get through it. It is what it is. Tomorrow's probably going to come. It'll work out. Like we were looking at the story I love to tell is he came down to visit, bought a one-way ticket. It was like, well, when's your return flight? Yeah, I don't have one. I figure I'm just going to buy a beater car off of Craigslist and work it somewhere up the coast. And I got enough time. If it dies, I'll have it towed away into oblivion and find something else, right? And then lands a pristine 350Z for like dirt cheap with like no scratches on it. You know what I mean? Where it's like just this Halo barn find car in the desert. And it's always kind of like that. So I enjoy hanging out with Paul because nothing's like life and death ever, like nothing's super worked up. So it's going to be a good time.
Good.
And then, come back Sunday, and then it's vacation time.
Yeah.
I may throw my work laptop in the bin. I haven't decided yet. I might plasti dip it where I can't open it. I'll have to cut it open or something. I don't know. But it's going to be good.
Good idea.
It's going to be really nice. And then I got to figure out what to do with the actual vacation time. I may end up in your neck of the woods or not. I don't know yet. Give me a chance to kind of work on a few things I need to take care of around the house too, particularly the backyard.
How much time do you have?
So I'm off basically Friday morning to July 14th.
Oh, wow.
So I return on the 15th.
Okay.
And that'll be nice. So just kind of hard chilling and I was hoping I wouldn't be gone the whole time you were here. So it's nice we'll get to hang out because you don't go back till Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Late Tuesday night.
Nice. We'll have some time to goof off.
Yeah. It'll be good.
So you're back down. You're doing tattoo stuff.
I am. Yeah.
What else is going on?
Over at the Mad Monk. Man, I don't really know. The world's been kind of nutty, so I've been kind of glued to like geopolitics stuff, which is kind of rare for me. I'm typically fairly localized. I try to dip into geo stuff or just human interest stories for the pod, but even human interest stories have kind of taken a big backseat to nuclear war or the potential thereof, or Middle East war, which I think kind of when that ever so often rears its ugly head, we end up all kind of collectively turning our focus towards it.
There's a symphony of clenched sphincters, kind of glued to the next news story. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and as of today, Trump has obviously announced the ceasefire and the title of the 12-day war that is now over. But since they've, both sides have exchanged little lobs at each other, like last minute, And then there was also talk early on from certain outlets that said that they may not have done the strikes, the bomber strikes may not have done the damage that was intended. But as of today, that's all been reversed. And I saw a bunch of news today basically saying that was all a bunch of hooey that was coming from intelligence from Iranian sources to CNN, but really like, and even, what's her name with the silver streak? Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
And their intel and everything said, no, that's all nonsense. We actually did exactly what we intended to do, and they are absolutely crippled in the nuclear capacity.
I think it's fair to walk through this high level because we haven't done a podcast since any of this started. So essentially, I'm tipped off to this by seeing a stream of videos being basically re-uploaded to Instagram and Twitter and everywhere about some UAE commercial pilots that started filming outside the window of their aircraft on their phone, and there's just like talon trails of smoke from all these airborne missiles coming out of Iran.
Yeah.
And they're just streaking across on the horizon, and they're kind of just like, and it looks like some post-apocalyptic sci-fi movie when all the, like, everything gets launched and everyone's just kind of in awe watching imminent destruction, and it's just sailing in a certain direction, and they're like, Iran fires strikes. You know, so I shut the computer down and fucking read a book. No, I start getting like, what is going on, right? So like, I'm starting to get information that this is happening. There's no impact assessment. There's no 24-hour on the ground. There's no nothing. We know there's been unrest in that area for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And it's really turned up since late Joe Biden. That's been in mainstream news, right?
Yeah.
So immediately after that, we get information the following day and a half, that mission success, we sent secret bombers over to knock out basically what enables Iran's nuclear program. So all of the 3 major sites for either bomb making or bomb launching, essentially. And that in a clandestine fashion, we came over, we laid waste, the bombers come back, and then the next news stories that we're hearing that's popping up everywhere are the pieces like CNN saying, well, maybe they didn't hit the actual targets or whatever, and this 12-day war is not over that Trump keeps talking about. Even if he announces a ceasefire, we've seen a bunch of erroneous stuff. I saw one thing yesterday, I forgot to talk to you about it, was the Iran propaganda campaign. They have a photograph of a downed F-35 Raptor with a bunch of people standing around it, like they shot it out of the sky and they were proclaiming, like, here's a warbird that we knocked out of the sky, and aren't we doing well? And that airframe is 29 times the size of an F-35. Like, the people look like ants next to it, and you're like, this looks like a movie prop. And it is a movie, but like, none of this is real. So wherever CNN's getting that from is likely from that story too.
Right.
And now here we are, and this all happens in a span of, what, 14 days of aggravation to where we're at today. And all of that I just talked about was condensed into 48, 72 hours-ish.
Right.
Like, kind of wild, right?
Yeah. So there's a couple of points, and then that, because this is splitting the Trump base, the MAGA base, the conservatives, whatever, in a couple of different directions. And it's all based on false pretenses that I really think that there are points that need to be cleared up. Mm-hmm. And then one final point at the end that is my personal like my personal belief that I kind of came to the idea of. But first and foremost, you know, you've got a bunch of moms who are terrified that their boys are going to go get put boots on ground.
Right.
That they're going to get drafted. They need to calm down. First and foremost, this was strikes that have been happening in every administration going all the way back into Bush 1.
The, like, pre-Gulf War.
Yeah. So, like, this is not anything new. This is not something that any other president hasn't done in spades in comparison.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, 4 different countries Obama did this to. Trump did it even a couple of times in his first, Biden did it. All of them did it. All of them have done these type of things. These are calculated strikes. They are not declarations of war. This is not something that you need to worry about. We have not had a draft since Vietnam.
Right.
If we didn't have it at 9/11, and we didn't have it at any other point going up into this point, especially when our enlistment rolls were dismal, where they were begging people to, they were at the lowest levels in history, especially during the Biden administration, where they just dipped off and were gone. We never had a draft.
Well,
and then furthermore,
it got saturated bad during that era because COVID as well. You had a lot of guys that were like, wear a mask or fuck off with no retirement. They said goodbye service, right?
So, but now with the administrative change, they've had a gigantic jump and the biggest increase in enrollment in history. So we're flush. We're good. Your boys aren't going to go. I have a 16-year-old son who's on the precipice of being, almost 17. On the precipice of, if I was worried, I'd be worried for my boy. We don't have to worry about that. There will not be boots on ground for anything other than a voluntary military force, which we have plenty of. We're fine. So that needs to be calmed down. Also, that point two is that Trump has, I see a lot of them going, he was supposed to, the no new wars, no new wars. First of all, we're not in, we aren't a part of it.
Right.
Second of all, this has been something that he said over 40 times in this campaign alone, but has said for a decade that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. He's not waffled on that stance. He has stayed very true and very clear to that. And he is doing exactly what he said he would do.
I mean, NATO would prefer North Korea, Iran, and maybe even India not have one as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they are like, well, the news says that they weren't even close to getting a nuclear weapon. Well, that's not true. They literally, if you look at it, they had the enrichment amounts for any nuclear site is like 2 to 4% or something like that. And in order to get a bomb, it's the only reason to get above those limits was like you need 60 some odd percent of the enrichment of the uranium. They were already almost there.
Right.
Now, the argument is like, well, I've heard Iran's going to have a nuclear bomb since I was a kid in the 80s. And, what now? Now it's going to, because Israel, blah, 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 blah. Well, no, that's the thing. It's like, well, now they have it.
Right.
Like,
we didn't take out a nuclear power plant that was facilitating alternative fuel.
Right, because the enrichment is a totally different level.
Unless we forget, this is a country that is not shy about saying fuck America at all costs.
At all costs, yeah.
At every platform opportunity they get to say it, they say it.
Since I was a kid,
forever. Like,
all I've ever heard is Iran screaming, and the regime change when they were under a much healthier situation and then were taken over by the Ayatollahs and turned into a Muslim country. What people don't understand is right now, Christians are being killed in Iran on the daily, all the time. And it is an atrocity that does not get reported. And a regime change, I'm okay with. I'm okay with the fact that we're going to put, hopefully, a new regime back in order where they are not being taken over by Shiite Muslims and Muslims that are literally financing the vast majority of the terrorism going on in that part of the world and elsewhere.
Because
the Christians aren't going to be slaughtered over there on a consistent basis. I'm super okay with it.
I'm very okay with it. And I think, because my wires get tangled with all this Middle Eastern politics as well, too. But we had Osama bin Laden being part of the forefront of the anti-American movement from Afghanistan's perspective with the ISIS regime.
Yeah.
Is that right? And most of that was backed by certain zealot Iranian Ayatollah types. And then the last strategic clapback we did, I also think under Obama, if memory serves, was the Soleimani drone strike. It could have been Trump, because it went It was right in that neck of the woods, though.
Yeah,
I know Obama took care of the Osama bin Laden piece, and then I don't know if it was him before Trump or it was Trump actually, and then it went Biden, and now we're back here again. But the strikes did not cease at all, and when we withdrew from Afghanistan, all of the interested parties collapsed in on themselves, except this time, to my understanding, and this comes from listening to a lot of Sean Ryan and stuff, was a lot of financial backing from China this time because of the natural resources and opiates and everything else they got in the area and so forth. Not a country that's super pro-America.
It was actually a metal, it's a particular alloy mine that they discovered that China was like, okay.
Sick.
Yeah.
You're right.
So they was like pumping money into there and saying, kill off everything else. Yeah.
So for if you're a Westerner, you should die on principle part, in my opinion, comes a lot more from the Iranian Ayatollah regimes back and forth and whatever's funding the zealotry. But the backing of resources and the ability to freely move intercontinental supply chain stuff is now mostly backed by China and so forth, since we pulled out of the Air Force base that we had built on there in their airport, whatever. I can't remember
Qatar?
The name of the base, the Afghanistan forward operating base that was kind of like became the launch point through the GWAT the whole time.
Yeah.
And so because those were pretty horrendous like images that we were seeing about people that were like clinging to the aircraft as it was flying away, and they just came in and started killing everybody that was left and shit. So like that was horrid in and of itself, right? And we can thank Joe Biden for that. But what transpired since then was like pulling a dam out of the water and the water just recollecting in the pool of the anti-Western, pro-terrorist, whatever strength of Ayatollah flavor of the month is actually in charge of the propaganda pieces of that. Almost unilaterally coming from Iran. So I understand from the
not to mention
ideological perspective.
The funding of Hezbollah and of who's running Gaza right now?
And this is, guys, this is why I've been resistant to talking about a lot of this, because I'm not as educated on it as I am in like Eastern Europe and stuff like that. That said, those guys. So
all of those groups are funded through Iranian regimes. And if you talk to any people, refugees from Iran or from the populace of Iran, you're talking to people who are like, we have been under the boot, or people who have left who said we had to flee because we were Christians, or we had to flee because they slaughter everybody who goes against the regime here. And it's not a small country. People, often think that Iraq and Iran are similar in size, and they're not. They're not even close. And so it's a huge country with a lot of money, and a lot of money being dumped in by foreign interests such as China, who say, you don't like those guys? Neither do we. Go ahead here.
And presumably they have their own oil and all that stuff. Like I know Saudi Arabia and the UAE are most known for the refining and all the trade of the oil, is the epicenter of the Middle East being but it's a stone's throw from Iran over there too. So cause for concern for sure, but this isn't a 12-day war like at its inception to its completion. This is generational hatred for Western civilization coming from
specifically
deeply radical Islamic zealots, in my opinion. Except this one seems to fund a lot of the terrorism because it can. And because people are willing to fly airplanes into New York City buildings.
On top of power grabs, you're also looking at ideological control too. They need...
because there's dozens, hundreds of sects of different like Islamic ideologues,
and all of them agree on one thing: Israel needs to go.
Exactly.
And that's something that they can all shake hands on. Much like you see a lot of like the Groyper guys and Catholic sects, and then also pagan sects. They'll all shake hands with each other, even though they fundamentally disagree on everything else. But they'll shake hands as long as you don't like Israel and the Jews and think that they're running the planet. which is why we come to my next point, and this is something I've kind of tested in social media recently, and I got very strong response from it, whether it be positive, but also one guy in particular was kind of questioning. He goes, "No, this is the belief of everybody." I was like, "It's not. Show me." Like, I grew up in the church. Show me where this has ever played out. I've never heard it. I've been in a lot of different denominations. I've studied since I was a kid. I've never heard a radio show, a podcast. I've never heard a pastor say it. I've never heard read any books or had any books. And I was like, show me any of this that kind of corroborates it. And I'm not saying I'm the first person to think this, but I don't think it's as popular an opinion because there's a sense of pride that's attached to it that I think needs to be let go if we're to have a true understanding of a biblical nature of what I'm about to say. What I'm about to say is that I love my country. Mm-hmm. I'm absolutely a patriot, 100% through and through. I think that the inception of this country, the United States of America, was a miracle. The way that it was lined up, the way that it happened that we won, in 1776, that we actually had the individuals placed here that could make that happen, mm-hmm. and that we were built on the foundation of the gospel, and we were built on the foundation of a freedom that had never even been tested mm-hmm. in history, that the government this type of government had never even been tried in history.
We're the longest running self-governance experiment in societal's history.
Right. Yeah. But then it was blessed beyond blessed beyond blessed to the mm-hmm. point where we became the most powerful nation in the world for 200 years, mm-hmm. if not more. So we're coming up on our 250th anniversary, and I would argue that 50 of that we were a little bit, but for 200 solid years, we've been the mm-hmm. most powerful nation, the most free nation, something that the rest of the world points at and goes, how do they do that? Mm-hmm. And people move here. They don't move to other countries. But God blessed this nation for a reason. And I don't know, and I love my country, and I'm so proud to be an American. However, I think because biblically, on a prophetic level, there's been numerous books from Isaiah to Jeremiah, and then going into the New Testament with Revelation. There's a spelling out that's loosely guided by events that need to lead up to the end times. Mm-hmm. One of the things that definitely was predicted was Israel coming back to the land of its origin as predicted in the Bible in 1948. It's predicted. Isaiah predicts that. Mm-hmm. Them coming back was a miracle. That was a predicted miracle through prophecy. So, the concept of Zionism and this country being a Zionist country, I think that God created the United States because it's not mentioned in the Bible, which is very odd. Other nations are, if you talk about Magog and you talk about Russia and Iran and a couple of others that are definitely mentioned. But the United States isn't. And I find that very, very odd. The great power of the West or something, anything in the Bible, but it's not brought up. And it got me thinking as to why. Why is that? We've been attached to the hip and Israel's best friend. And we helped it get into its place in 1948, and we've been by its side the entire time. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we mentioned? And it occurred to me, I was like, this country, God designed this country for a purpose. He created the United States and gave it the bold men, gave it the freedoms, gave it the power, the money, the influence that it had on a global scale for one purpose and one purpose alone, to protect Israel in a sea of hostility. Every country over there, from Egypt to Jordan to Libya to all of them, mm-hmm. every single one of them, they all want to kill Israel. Mm-hmm. The only reason they can't is because of us. And I think God created the United States to protect Israel. Financially support it, protect it militarily, protect it with influence, protect it on a global scale until it turns its back on it, and that's when the end times will happen. That's my biblical kind of perspective of it. And I think that it makes me prouder to be an American. Mm-hmm. It's not something that they're like, so you're Israel first. And I was like, I have to be. I'm America first, because without America, Israel couldn't exist. Mm-hmm. But without Israel, America doesn't need to exist.
And that's a fact.
Yeah.
Like, that's a fact.
So I'm actually more proud to be an American because of the fact that God placed us and gave us the authority and the power to help that land that he has a plan for, that he has a plan and has stated very, very specifically, this is where it's all going to go down. These are the people that I need to have protected here. And this is what I have planned for this area. And I'm not going to let these other people, these other groups destroy my plan. And you have been chosen to be the ones to make sure that they stay where they need to be and protected until I come back to finish my plan with those people in that land. And so I put that out there, and I had a lot of people go, wow, I never thought about it like that, but maybe you're right. And then a lot of people, like I had that one guy who's just like, no, that's just what all Christians believe. Like, and I was like, that's not what all Christians believe.
No,
and I was like, in fact, that's not anywhere close to it. I was like, they believe that in Zionism and God's chosen people, and that the Israeli state they have the right to exist where they exist, and that they are allies with them, but they don't believe that this country was literally created in order to actually protect those people in that land. And so it is controversial. I don't know if anybody else, and maybe somebody in the comments can throw us a bone if you've heard that there's a book or any literature or anything like that that kind of corroborates or supports or was the original thread of thought in that capacity. Mm-hmm. But it's something that I thought about and kind of threw it out there. My friend Stephanie, she actually posted it. She goes, "Hey, this is some thoughts from my friend. What do you guys think?" And the response was pretty positive, but I don't really know if it's true. I'm not saying it is. It's just kind of how I feel. It makes me more proud to be an American in this particular global conflict on that corner of the planet. Yeah. And so that, God chose us for a purpose, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a concept worth exploring further. I mean, I'd like to know if there's literature on that too. I've made some pretty outlandish or controversial correlation predictions to a similar degree, maybe not, hey, this is the genesis of why this country was designed in divine will. But I'm not opposed to the idea based on the fact that there are no references to the West when it comes to the U.S. in almost any biblical subtext or text. So,
and it seems odd, especially in this day and age, where if we're looking at the predictability, the predictive nature of the New Testament and of the Old Testament, and how things have lined up and correlated over the time frame, that it's distinctly quiet about something that has such a global impact, such an impact on the entire world.
Well, and even those that are read up on it when it comes to like Old Testament particularly, and it's still hard to follow some of the point to point, but when you go through like the 12 tribes, and then you have to chase down what they did over the generations and where they landed, and you're like, well, how does that work with Tower of Babel and all the rest of the stuff, and like what scattered the Jews and Gentiles into modern-ish human society globally, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's really, really hard to connect the dots on, even if you are well read on it. So trying to like listen to a lecture on it is kind of like mind-boggling. Yeah. Because you're like, I was lost an hour ago. You know what I mean? Like, is any of this true? Like, how do we? You know what I mean? So, yeah, worth exploring though. Yeah. So what's next though for this area? Like when if we see peace,
Yeah.
or a ceasefire that hopefully leads to peace, what are you personally hopeful for next for this particular conflict?
I don't think there will be a peace or a conflict, or I don't.
That was my answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think this will last.
No, and it's predicted not to. Wars and rumors of wars until the end, and so I think that what will end up being is there will be a guy who comes in and creates a peace treaty that will last for 3.5 years, and then 3.5 years after that, or at the 3.5 year point, things will turn and it'll go absolutely, and forgive the terminology, tits up, and it's going to go bad. That's predicted in the Bible. But like somebody will come in and create a peace treaty, and he will sit on the throne in Jerusalem, and they will go. He'll bring a one world government. He'll bring a one world monetary system, and a one world religion. And he will merge all of them together, and create a peace unlike anything that the world has ever seen. And that isn't a good thing. I mean, war sucks, and human nature sucks, and the fact that we're a fallen, sinful nature group of people, and flawed to their core, but this is a false peace, and it's designed to lead people astray from God. So,
are these references pre or post rapture?
Depends on your denomination. If you're a dispensationalist, this is post.
That's the right answer.
Yeah.
It depends on your denomination.
Yeah. So it's post rapture.
Yeah.
Some denominations don't even believe in the rapture. Some denominations believe that we're actually going through what is described as the last days, and that it really,
because that's the other thing.
It's a post-millennial versus pre-millennial kind of concept. And so I happen to subscribe to a dispensational pre-rapture situation. That's my belief system. That's my denomination that I attend. But so most of my perspective is coming from that. Do I think it's a salvific issue? No, I don't think that if you're covenantalist or a dispensationalist, that either way, like as long as you both agree on the tenets of the gospel that brings you to the cross, and that you understand that you can't get to heaven unless you go through the cross. And once you get past that, then the rest of it, although I think is important to kind of dice out, I don't think it's a salvific issue. I think that there's, I don't think that the church has replaced Israel or God's covenant with the Jewish people. I think that that's supersessionism, that God basically divorced Israel and the Jewish people at basically Christ's crucifixion and resurrection, that at that point he turned his back on him, on the Jewish people. And that the church is now Israel. That's the new covenant, is the church is now Israel. I don't believe that.
I don't either.
And the reason why I don't believe that is because if God is willing to break his couple hundred, if not a couple thousand years promise to the Jewish people, and consistently said, I'll never break my promise to you, I'll never break my promise to you, no matter how poorly they behaved biblically throughout the ages, which they did. I mean, constantly. The Jews were always in rebellion. They were always being put into slavery or exile into the desert. They were always whining and complaining, can we please have a king? He's like, you don't need a king, I'm your king. And they're like, please, the pagans have kings. Can we have one? He's like, fine, you're Saul.
Yeah.
Like, consistently and over again did they not behave. But he still said, you're my chosen people. So their misbehavior, as the world would like to view it as nowadays, is no different than they ever were. And we could go into the prodigal son kind of analogy.
We could start with them going out for a walk and getting lost for 40 years.
Yeah. Well, after they were enslaved, after he let them out of slavery,
Like, and there were quality reasons, according to the Bible, why they were lost for so long.
Yeah, because he's like, you guys are dumb. Stop being dumb. But that's not my problem. Right. That's God's problem. That's his people. He said it, and he's all, just trust me. These are my people, and I'll deal with them. Right. Now, so I don't think that if God's willing to break his promise to them, that what's to say he's not going to break his promise to the rest of us. Right. He said that as Gentiles, you're grafted onto the root. You're grafted onto the tree through Jesus' sacrifice. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with that. I think that anybody that isn't, it's a jealousy issue. You don't like the idea that God has chosen people that are misbehaving little cretins and don't even believe that he sent the Messiah. So how could they possibly be his chosen people? And they get real jealous. They're like, well, look at us. The European people did just fine. Why can't we be the chosen people? Well, because God said so. And also, there's also the British. You guys had a shot. Sodom and Gomorrah happened. It was a bad look. He picked somebody else. Yeah. So, but he also, the British Israelism, the lost 10 tribes of Israel, people think that, the Ashkenazis aren't real Jews, the ones that have come out of Europe. And I was like, yeah, actually, those were the lost 10 tribes that went in there. I also think that it's silly. It's a silly thing to think that the synagogue of Satan, I'm getting in the weeds here, I'm sorry, folks, but the synagogue of Satan, which is what they all turn to when they all go, that's what the Jews are, they're the synagogue of Satan. The real Jews are actually the Europeans that went up through the Caucasus Mountains and became the Brits and the Celts and the Germanic people and absolute nonsense. It's total, complete nonsense. I attribute that line of thought to the being the progenitor of racism. Well, yeah, absolutely. And not only is it that, but it's also it's kind of Darwinian. Very much. Yeah. Like it bases itself in the idea that God created men not equally. Yes. That there's an evolutionary factor that makes certain groups of people better than others. That affects some but not others based on geography or other reasons. I'll concede that there are definitely cultural differences and intelligence differences based on regions of the world where you didn't have to be more intelligent to be living in the Sahara Desert or whatever the case may be. But I've met a lot of really brilliant African people. Mm-hmm. And I've met a lot of brilliant Asian people and a lot of brilliant Hispanic people and a lot of really dumb white ones too. Yeah. So let's not pretend that pump the brakes on in an aggregate that they're like this is, but also that God at all ever once said in the Bible, there are some of you that are blessed more than others, and those guys over there don't pay attention. Calm down, Fraulein. Yeah. But I don't believe in the idea that God that he put some type of Darwinian concept into us. I don't believe that at all. And so there's a lot to it that I just can go down many different rabbit holes, but I believe that God knows where his people are. Mm-hmm. I think that will draw them to where he needs them to be. I think that the synagogue of Satan is actually not a group of Jewish people. I think it's the people who say that they are the Jews. Right. But that's why I asked that question. Yeah. Do you think it's the rapture is pre or post false prophet? I personally prescribe or subscribe to the fact that it's after we see these events. Yeah. I think, so you're and for a couple of reasons. Right. For a couple of reasons. One, littered throughout the Bible's entire body of work is the persistence of storytelling around faith being challenged. Right. Over and over and over again. And a false prophet's not going to do much good if the call to the ever after happens prior to their ascension. Yeah. There's not much left at that point.
So I think it's going to be long after, but the persecution pieces of that are detailed pretty vividly, very vividly in the New Testament in certain degrees. But I think we got to see that first before that occurs, just based on pattern.
Yeah.
It's even pre-communion Old Testament stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've always viewed the Old Testament, when God's referenced, as very tangible, like showings, pillars of smoke and fire. New Testament, it's very faith-based through works and carrying on what the legacy of Christianity is supposed to be and the fellowship pieces around that. So, yeah, I don't think we get a free pass all of a sudden at the very end where we don't get to see any of these things. I think these have to transpire before, like, the finish line is like, there it is. You know what I mean? And that's just, I have no real basis for that other than pattern study of the Bible from end to end. It seems to be the case that you're tested over and over again. Christ was tested. Yeah. Moses was tested a whole bunch. Jonah. I mean, it goes on and on.
So for us not to.
For us to get a free pass at the end before the rapture occurs just doesn't seem to jive with.
1st and 2nd Corinthians deals with this very, very clearly. And if you kind of break it down, which we have been for 3.5 years at the church I go to, like, we go methodically verse by verse and break it down. So it took us 3 years to get through Romans and another 3 years to get through 1st and 2nd Corinthians. So, and basically, the way that it breaks it down, I would say would actually counter to that, to say that he would not actually put us through that during that time frame. But there will be people who come to Christ after that, and that will be their point of faith testing. There is precedent set for him taking people away before the big, getting people out, Lot and his wife, and a lot of those things where he's like,
it didn't work out for Lot's wife.
Well, no, it did not. Yeah, right. Because she disobeyed God.
Yeah.
So, but like, there's a lot of precedent that gets set that he does take people out prior to the big cataclysmic, boom.
Right, but not ever before being offered a choice of present, alternative, you in the middle.
Right.
And that's kind of what leads me to believe, like, at least some of that will probably be seen where it's like, oh shit, this is the end times. Because that's another thing. I'm sure you grew up the same way. Like, we've been in the end times our whole lives. You know what I mean? Like, that was a very big
tiptoeing over the
thing.
edge. Yeah,
that was a huge Calvary thing for my parents, and they were Christians when you were the most Christian of all time in the 1990s.
Oh yeah,
for, like, right before the satanic panic and pop culture was the enemy and you couldn't deviate or watch The Simpsons or you might go to hell kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like, and that was the same way for a lot of people our age range.
Yeah. We lived through
very much
the trauma of being, and I don't think that it was intentional. I don't think our parents.
It's weird because there weren't the internet back then. There wasn't super churches. It wasn't like one guy was feeding this narrative to all Christianity. It's not like many of them were very gung ho on the Catholicism front, even though most defected from Catholicism from the 60s and 70s and stuff. In 50s and 60s, I guess would be the better age range, but. It is interesting to me how we've been in the end times the whole time since we've been growing. You know what I mean? Where it's like, right, but there are pretty clearly defined hallmarks throughout the latter part of the New Testament that indicate when everything is going to end.
Yeah.
I just use the rapture as sort of a bookmark on, like, where do you land on how this correlates to the Middle East? What you had said is a suggestive for the inception of America by God's design as a protection of that,
right before the
versus all of it falling apart. Because to me, that would be when we turn the key and start the motor for the end times.
Right. And that's, obviously
not that
no man will know
can
the
be
time and place.
predictable. But,
right. No man will know the time and place.
That's my guess.
Yeah. However, but there, like you said, there are key hallmarks. And the one that will be the hallmark before will be the peace treaty, that then at that point will allow the Jews to put a temple on the Temple Mount. The rebuilding of the third temple is what is the component that kickstarts the rest of it. Right now, there's a giant mosque sitting there. So we're not anywhere near that. And my parents were very careful. Like, yeah, we did live with the anytime now kind of feeling. And I've been very careful, you know, with my kids, because I don't want them to have that feeling. And I always grew up with the idea of be prepared for it to happen tomorrow, but live your life like it's not coming for
the
100
way
years.
I was raised, it was the most pure of heart, best intended fear mongering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like that one could
I don't
possibly
think
have
they
lived
meant
through.
at all to traumatize us. But,
Right. They just wanted to make sure you knew
right.
where you needed to be when that day came, and that day might be in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so like,
yeah, right.
we can't go
We're all
to
gonna
McDonald's.
ghost out of our clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, God's coming. We don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But again, to their credit, you can't, you know, the no man knows the time or the hour. You can't be predictive of this stuff because nobody really, really knows.
Right.
I'm just thinking, based on everything I've observed, I would imagine we're going to see a lot of this transpire pre-rapture. Like there's going to be a choice to denounce your religion and join this one world order, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, there could be a mark of the beast, which we were raised to believe anything from microchips in your hand and forehead to like, you know,
right hand to the forehead,
actual, you know, around the fire tattoo brands of devil horns. It could be anything, but it's going to be there. And you have to make a choice or you're going to die like a
group
Roman.
Of people who actually think that there's a whole group of people who think it's going to be mid-trib.
Yeah. So, you know, like I've talked to people recently that were like, you know, all the Elon Musk stuff about the like getting
transhumanism
plugged in and, you know, all this augmented reality stuff. They're like, that's it. That's how they're going to get into your brainwaves. This is it. We didn't expect it to not be a tangible thing, but technology's changed our minds. It could be, you know, the mark of the beast now, and it's
but
like
it has to be a component that actually ties your financial stuff. Like if you take this card here, which, you know,
the cryptocurrency could be the mark of the beast. Like, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And this taps on something. That chip could go here or here. But that your monetary system does not sell your soul.
Correct.
So it has to be attached to something that you subscribe who you are to, and allegiance to to not God.
Correct.
And to physically and have to actually say, I am no longer a child of God. I am a child of this. And this is where my allegiance is. And then but with that attaches your banking system and everything else, because you won't be able to trade or sell according to biblical
That's where
text.
I think the false prophet to the one world order, to the unified economy pieces have to fall first.
Right.
I think that's the choice as you watch.
Do
it
I think
unfold,
we're gearing up to that? Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that to me is the tribulation part of the decision pre-rapture. If it was to be as overt as that, I think those would be the hallmarks where I'd be like, yeah, there is no tomorrow.
Right.
You know.
But I have to be really careful. Like I have a 19-year-old daughter, and all she wants to do is have kids. You know, I've got a 16-year-old son who wants to be a lawyer and live his life. So I have to be really careful.
One of them's going to hell. Is it the lawyer? I'm kidding.
But yeah, like I want to be able to.
Just kidding, buddy.
Yeah, he tried to argue with us at what the difference between during our late night meal on my birthday at Buffalo Wild Wings, where all sorrows come to sing.
Yeah.
He.
Real mark of the beast is that B-Dubs Dubs sticker that they give you on the hot wings box.
But he tried to argue the difference between what an accident was and what a collision or crash was. So, and we're like, dude, not the time. Like, yeah, like, you know.
Is it minor attracted person? Is it pedophile? It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it's still your fault.
I had to go outside and vape after that one.
No, I don't know. Like, I think it's interesting to talk about this stuff. I didn't expect it to go deeply this direction, but I do think
they
they're
didn't have an outline tonight.
yeah, and I think they are all too correlated because that's the focal point for almost every world organization.
Yeah.
I mean, the NATO countries, the harbor of terrorism, and us policing that for as long as we did, and losing a lot of faith on the world stage
World
as the
Economic
protectors
Forum,
for that.
all of it. They're all
bet.
like funneling towards kind of the same concept.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
I was going to also mention to those that are worried about like the boots on the ground thing, if what transpired in the last 5 days was between the United States and China, I would have a different opinion.
Absolutely.
But because it's Iran or Iran, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not as convinced.
No.
So
Yeah, it would take, and also let's break this down to the logistics of it too. It would take an act of Congress to implement a draft. This Congress or any in the near future is not going to implement a draft.
yeah,
Because the president can't unilaterally just say, unless he literally supersedes like everything, and what he does is he does what no other president since Lincoln did and suspend habeas corpus. And Lincoln did it illegally. Madison did it legally because he got consent from Congress. Lincoln didn't do it legally. He just did it. So if Trump just suspends habeas corpus and then puts us under martial law, then at that point he can implement a draft that then would have to be carried out by forcibly, right?
we have way bigger problems.
We would
than-
go into a civil war
Correct.
here prior to putting boots on the ground over there. So,
You know
like,
what's-
it's just not even in the realm of possibility.
You know what sucks though is like if somehow, even if Congress was like, yeah, let's go, if there was a draft for this conflict or something else, just if there's a draft, maybe something's about to happen that we don't know about. I'm more worried about this generation's eligibility to go into a draft and representing our country accurately and not
Yeah.
resentfully. I would almost prefer they take you and me,
Yeah.
who actually give a fuck about all this stuff and probably have the life skills to manage through it, even in the darkest of hours on a
100%.
battleground,
Yeah.
rather than
The
the Gen Z kid
half educated, barely
that
educated,
echoes sound bites that he hears on TV.
the
and
TikTok generation of
100%.
of all of this,
Like, I'm scared of you
of you being out there for
because you're representing me. Not because you terrify me.
me. Yeah.
Because your inability to live life terrifies me, man.
Right.
And
If you can't
if that's
do-
the first time you touch grass, we're fucked.
100%.
Yeah.
If you can't do your own laundry, I do not want you out there.
Not that I wish that for your 47th or 8th birthday present is like, well, grab a rifle, we're going east a lot.
Yeah.
But I'd almost prefer it
Yeah.
to the alternative of what we've
Absolutely.
got going on now. So,
Yeah. So-
sorry, Gen Z. I've read your gospel.
It's a little
I
wacky.
prefer the original.
So, but yeah,
I prefer the book than the movie.
I will explore some talking points on pre, post, and mid rapture kind of concepts.
Yeah.
So that way we can kind of maybe explore that a little bit more later on. But yeah,
We could throw some wild shit out there for a Take Purge episode too. Just throw some crazy biblical ideas we've got as take purges, just to get them off our chest.
yeah.
Yeah, everything's off limits when the take purge is going for the duration it's going until the alarm sounds. Yeah, we can get out there. We can get really out there. I don't know if this conversation is as interesting to you guys as it is to me, but I don't think we've got to hit these points before in conversation to this degree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Because I got some wild ideas about revelations and stuff like that, and all the interpretive things that I would correlate to modern day things now that just make sense to me. But yeah, it'd be a fun thing to research because I am interested. I've also been, prior to I didn't take it to a hypothesis point like you have, but I've also been quite interested in why, generally speaking, the lion's share of the dominant powers on this planet are not ever referenced in the Bible.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it's pretty stark when you put it just in those terms. Like, well, go find it. You can't.
Yeah.
There's, it doesn't talk about, England and the U.S. and
so
Venezuela.
Yeah. All of South America. Yeah.
They're just not in there.
Yeah.
Canada, sorry guys. Great syrup.
Yeah.
No biblical context.
Prunzi, I'm sorry. You guys just aren't involved.
Sorry, Prince. We have no idea what's going on with you biblically.
Speaking of Prunzi, I need to lay this out there.
Yeah. Sure.
Hockey. Mm-hmm. Florida took it again, bud. Sorry.
It's happened.
Your Oilers. In fact, Canada hasn't taken. I just found this out, but Canada has not taken the Stanley Cup since like 1995 or something like that. Like, it has stayed south of the border for a long time, and that's got to be pretty hurtful for a sport that I think originated in Canada.
I mean, I believe it has. We get worked up when the U.S. men's basketball team doesn't take gold.
Yeah.
Every 4 years,
right.
when that occurs, because we're the obvious favorites. We have unbelievable sports and excitement around it, money involved in it, training program. Like it's there's a league, the Premier League. There's also leagues in Europe.
But when they get beat by like a Yugoslavian team,
we go down in a double out tournament. We're down 1 to France, and it's like people are taking time off work and shit. So I imagine, since that's kind of what people grow up with in Canada, that it's a big deal.
Yeah,
but they're too fucking polite to just smear it in our faces. They will, I think, after this last year. I think they will.
My apologies to Prunzi and Shorzy, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. So
yeah, but we still
some good Canadian fun there.
We still very much wish that we could make poutine correctly in this country, and we can't seem to. Not without your help. And we don't have Tim Hortons. We do have donut holes. They're not the same.
Nope.
They're not Timbits. What else is going on? I mean, that's a big piece of what's been dominating conversation, news, politics, and so on. There's plenty of local kerfuffles and stories, one of which I suppose I'll briefly mention. This is me not shitting on Washington anymore. Guess who filed for bankruptcy in Washington State?
I would imagine a lot of people, but who in particular?
This person is the town of Clay Elum.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Filed for bankruptcy. The whole town.
And we're familiar with Clay Elum because you have to drive through it and to get from where I live to Western Washington. And really, I did not hear this.
You know why?
No.
This is so Washington. Shortly before the 2008 collapse, there was a covenant built with a contracting group for like $25 billion or something, a ton of money, 12 billion something, but over 25 years, they had the exclusive rights to build a bunch of homes in Clay Elum. And the 2008 crash happened, and part of this covenant was the construction group gets to determine when to start building based on we know for a fact over 25 years, house prices will climb and fall. It's on you as part of this covenant. And our agreement to it is you're going to build us houses in our zoned areas. We are going to fast track all of the permitting needed to do it. And you're going to basically be the central infrastructure point that puts Clay Elum on the map as we aim to grow our economy as a result of this. We've got it mapped out. Their annual budget is like $2.5 million, somewhere around there. So they started building. They said, no, wait, this is too favorable for the contractor. We made a poor choice because in 2019, they said, let's start building homes now. Give us our permits. We've got the areas and stuff. And they're like, oh, we don't want to do that. We're not ready. We don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we made a legal agreement with you back then, but, no, we're not going to issue any permits for this. So they sued the shit out of the city. And they said, you had a wild amount of money that you kept us locked into this being the largest development opportunity our company has ever had, and then fucked us for it over the course of 25 years in this covenant, and now you're not going to allow us to build there and pay what's due. We'll see you in court. And we're not taking a structured settlement. You are paying every fucking penny that you owe, plus 12% interest every year that this isn't accounted or covered for. And they're down $22 million as an aggregate per year. So they're like, can't pay it, bankruptcy. So they just filed bankruptcy to have to get out of paying where they fucked this construction company in a 25-year covenant for an obscene amount of money, where every year the structure in the article that I read said it was like $7,300 a day that the city owes this, based on the aggregate amount of money over that 25-year covenant that they were awarded in court. You must pay this construction company. You have prevented them from doing other work, growing in other areas. This is the value of the construction contract in aggregate. You agreed, you codified it in law. This was part of your plan, 10-year plan or whatever. You owed these monies to this company. And the company said, we're not taking payments. You owe us this money. We're pissed because you just say no. You gave us the chance to come in and build when we said we could. 2019 is when we said we were going to start.
Yeah.
And then you guys backed out. And this was pre-pandemic. Now our company has lost money during the pandemic because we couldn't do shit. And we were counting on that construction project. So Clay Elum said, we ain't paying shit. We're filing bankruptcy. And those proceedings just landed like 2-3 days ago or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So the entire town of Clay Elum is filing for bankruptcy to get out of paying a covenant they agreed to build the infrastructure of their town over 25 years.
Now, I know this isn't the first time a town has ever filed bankruptcy,
Sure.
obviously in history, but like, what does that mean? Like, I'm thinking about the town, and like, does that mean like,
Goodyear, Arizona.
do you don't have infrastructure anymore? You can't pay for police. You can't pay for city, like
In totality, they have $5 million to the whole city's budget. That includes the schools. That includes the fire
So
department.
does a town bankruptcy, does that basically, does that include the, because sometimes it, like in those type of settlements, they will allow you to continue at operational costs, but nothing more.
Well, that's what needs to be decided in bankruptcy court now.
Yeah.
Because they just filed for it. My assumption is the state of Washington has to approach this in totality and figure out how they're going to bail them out. A state, by the way, that just released the King County budget just over the hill, where they're in the hole some obscene figure of dollars, where they're like, bring on the taxes, baby. We're going to tax the constituents out of this hole.
Yeah.
And hopefully we put the money where we say we're going to. Meanwhile, over the past, Clay Elum is completely in bankruptcy court as a result of just choosing, well, maybe we didn't want to do that after we legally agreed to it some 8 years ago. Sorry, guys, we're not going to pay you shit.
Well, I would imagine that there's probably a whole new city council and a whole new mayor.
Oh,
and all,
yeah. They're inheriting this as a problem, and they're having to vote as a city council to go unanimous, let's go bankrupt to try and solve this problem.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Sorry, Washington. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I've never, like,
That's wild.
seen over a massive construction deal that's like basically going to double or triple their infrastructure with homes. And all the real estate, so you've been by, there's nothing but wooded hillside everywhere you go.
Yeah, you're at the base of the is that the Cascades?
Yeah.
You're at the base of the Cascades. As you start to climb out of Ellensburg,
Yep.
you're going into the base of that mountain structure. And it's a beautiful little town that's in the middle of like hilled, wooded areas that it's all forest, and it's like straight out of like Harry and the Hendersons.
Yep.
It's like a beautiful little town. But they had like newer gas stations, newer like restaurants popping up.
All of this was part of their plan to amplify
New
the town.
overpasses and stuff that were
Yep.
coming through, all of that. Yeah.
They got the state to agree that they were going to do a bunch of expansion as a result of the fact that the community would be larger. This would have led to more jobs, more schools, getting people an alternative to move out of the city, but only by about an hour.
Yeah.
It's where the commute's not going to kill you, but like you'll have your own little I describe Cle Elum as a pin drop, but built very much like Lake Tahoe in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And that was their plan. They wanted to build out. They made an agreement. They hired an exclusive company that could do it, that was shovel ready, except the agreement was it's in the hands of the construction company to choose when we start to execute permitting on this project over 25 years. Because of the fluctuation in house prices, we can't gouge them, they can't gouge us, but we're going to commit these monies and they're going to commit to actually executing the job. The only thing we have to do to realize that is push through all the permitting that they would need to start building these developments. And they fucked them. And then they lost in court. And then now they're going bankrupt to push off the court proceedings and let the state deal with the problem.
I wonder if there's any criminal element to that.
It has to be, right?
There has to be. Like, for elected
They won
officials,
the lawsuit against the city, first of all.
for elected officials to get themselves into a situation where they lose on that level.
Not wild. Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. Hello, Cynthiana. Sorry, I didn't say hi sooner. I saw you come up. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, dude. So to me, that was, I mean, an aside story that obviously I'll get some context and explore it. I don't have notes on this. This is just based on the article I read a couple hours ago. But pretty wild stuff, because I had heard about the lawsuit prior to this. I just didn't fathom that the alternative would be, instead of a structured repayment, that they would just go bankrupt and throw middle fingers at this company, even after losing to them in court. And my guess is, based on the government structure in Washington state, they'll find a way to bail them out. They will allow the proceedings of bankruptcy to go forward, and God knows what kind of liabilities that's going to throw on the people that do own homes, property, businesses, pulled permits for a new gas station that they hadn't built yet.
Wow.
Like, who the fuck knows how far that reaches down the rabbit hole, but it's an excruciating amount of money, and this company is at the mercy of Washington's lawmakers to figure out whether they get any of it.
Dang.
And like, how do you protect yourself except for the agreement that you had made with that city that was codified in contract and then backed up by law when you won the lawsuit, and you still might not get a dime? Or the state will have to pay them out. And part of that will probably have to go to this construction company for losses. I would assume that would be part of the bankruptcy yield, but good God. So yeah.
Because there's got to be insurance companies that each city has.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they, like, all of the taxable agencies that are in Idaho, they go through iCrimp or something to that effect, where if they get themselves into a similar situation, they have an insurance agency. But, like, for one faction, like, it's like the county commissioners get themselves into a situation where
Correct.
they end up having to lean on their insurance company because they screwed up.
Right,
But
or the
for a
police
whole
department
town?
overspent or something like
Right,
that. Like, there's
exactly.
parts of your city infrastructure that, the whole town is on the hook for this.
So now, the whole town, now...
The lawsuit's like, I think it's 8 to 10 times the valuation of their annual budget for all of everything they do. And so it's not small. And so their answer was bankruptcy. We've got to pay for shit.
So I think the next level up would be that in order for compensation to happen, it will probably get thrown up to different court systems.
Yeah, if it gets to Olympia, the state's paying for it.
Right.
Somehow. Because, I mean, there's no shot they would not make, like, some sort of federal larceny charge where it becomes criminal at that point if the state says fuck you. I think the state's just stuck holding the bill for Cle Elum's decision making on this because they refused to pay what they lost in court to the awarded contract company that was supposed to do this work. Unbelievable.
Now, on an individual level, all the city council members and the mayor who all voted for unilaterally for them to go into bankruptcy. How do they, because Cle Elum's not a big community.
Nope.
How do they live there?
It's a good question.
How do they, like, do they all just resign and move?
It's got to be part of the structured agreement for the awarded bankruptcy. It has to be.
Yeah.
There's the money piece of it. There's the minimum standard to run the city so it doesn't just cease to exist. I mean, the alternative to this is either the state figures this, my guess is the state figures this out and bails them out somehow, and then there's penalties or repercussions that are going to be a trickle-down effect to everybody that lives there, including the representatives of their city council and so on. Or they're going to do what they did at the Salton Sea, and they're just going to fuck off. Like everything will just be a moment in history until it's claimed by the woods that surround it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what other alternative there is. It's going to look like Mullen, Idaho. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, there's nothing
There's
there.
like 4 people just wandering around, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you have one tooth and you're not even taking care of it. What the fuck is wrong? But I don't know how else they can solve for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're a critical infrastructure piece between Spokane and Seattle either. It's like a gas station that's up the road and around the corner on one overpass. It's not even at the summit.
Yeah.
At Snoqualmie, which is, a completely different zone from what I understand at Clay Ellum. But building on the west side of that hill is going to be really, really tough. Or if they do go bankrupt, it's going to be a really awesome investment opportunity if you have a bunch of money to buy up some land out there while they're in bankruptcy, trying to figure that shit out, selling shit off to the highest bidder, left, right, and center. Plots of land, trees. They'll probably name a constellation after you for a few bucks, like whatever. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I found that fascinating that they went to bankruptcy after the lawsuit, because the lawsuit was crippling.
Yeah.
It was like, fuck. But now that they're going bankrupt, like, the construction company's pulling their hair out. Like, what? Like, we want it all now, and you're accruing 12% interest annually, and that works out to $7,300 a day. But we're not taking payments. Pay this money.
Yeah.
We had a 25-year deal. We waited till 2019. We were within our right. We proved it in court. We won the case.
Yeah.
And you're still trying to back out.
Wow.
And now the whole state has to account for you, and they probably will.
Dude.
So wild shit.
Yeah.
I've never seen that happen before, where it's like, the alternative is bankruptcy? Jesus.
I used to stop there almost every trip back and forth because I liked going there rather than Ellensburg. So I'd go there, but I mean,
there's no crowds, especially on weekend travel. It's easier stop. Yeah.
And so, but I don't have to worry about that anymore because I just don't go into that state if I can help
worth it.
And this proves that once again that the destruction of that state, little by little, pocket by pocket, is gonna implode on itself.
Yeah, when I'm 40 and I go, I didn't know you could do that. Things have gone way off the rails.
Yeah.
From an infrastructure perspective.
Yeah, right? So.
Yeah, crazy stuff. But I don't know. I don't know what else we got going on. I don't think we have a whole heck of a lot.
Well, we did. We
watched a movie.
I did watch a movie on the way down from on the airplane.
Yeah.
And then we watched one last night.
Yeah, we did.
But let me start off with the movie that I watched, which was Mickey 17. And it came out last year, and it was a pretty big deal because it was from the director, what's his name? He's a South Korean director, Bong Joon-ho. And he's also one of the writers, and he's known for a lot of really cool things in the past. Like I've actually enjoyed him for Snowpiercer, which I thought was a fantastic film. He actually won an Oscar for Parasite for Best Picture, I believe. Okja, like he does a lot of really cool. I think the first thing I saw of him was The Host, which was a wonderful monster film. But he's kind of known for a lot of really cool things and very celebrated as a director. And this brought him in with Robert Pattinson of Twilight fame. And Robert Pattinson has been doing hard work trying to separate himself from his Twilight connections. From Batman to The Lighthouse and everything in between, where he's really trying to stretch his wings and not be so pigeonholed into
He's kind of the guy that I think does a one for me, one for them movie.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because he's been in some really big stuff like Twilight. He was in Harry Potter, I guess.
Yeah.
That's kind of where you got to start. Like, he's done big films, Batman, but he also does these weird art house, kind of cool characters, really way out there stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of range. And honestly, his range and a little bit of the humor is what made this movie, because I really love a good sci-fi movie. I really love a good kind of like humanity adapting and terraforming and stuff like that, and even fun clone stuff. But this was kind of a sci-fi version of if Multiplicity with Michael Keaton was less comedic and more sci-fi. And the plot was basic, they're terraforming planets, but in order to do so, they have to test the atmospheres and everything. And by doing that, they have created this program of cloning where they map out your biometrics and your memories. And if you pass away, they just print you out like a 3D printer, basically your biometrics, and plant your memories into it. And you are just you again. You just woke up after death. And so Mickey 17 is the 17th version of this particular character.
That makes more sense.
So,
did you ever watch Altered Carbon?
Yeah, very
similar concept, but you get a new body rather than printing. Okay, gotcha.
So, but, and they're part of a group that this egomaniacal, like, ultra billion, zillionaire businessman was actually left Earth because the ethics committees said that this cloning situation wasn't appropriate for Earth, and so he goes, yeah, but there's no laws that say I can't do it in space. So they have people who volunteer for this because they want to get off of Earth for debts or whatever, right? So they go out there and they put themselves into this kind of cloning slavery, essentially, where they're the test, because they can just keep coming back. They're the test for, is this air poisonous,
right?
Or like, can we build a we found out that there's these viruses here, so we'll use you as the test subject so we can build a
like antibodies,
a vaccine, right? Yeah. So that way we can all survive on this planet and inoculate, all of these different things, right? So
those labs in Wuhan. No reason.
Yeah. But it's basically this guy, and he does a really good, Robert Pattinson does a really good job of like playing slightly varied personality concepts of the same memory base and body base. And it's very similar to the Multiplicity kind of situation. But man, it came out so heavy-handed out of the gate, where the main antagonist, which is this kind of businessman overlord, who's played by Mark Ruffalo, who is known within the industry as being like one of the biggest lefty anti-Trump guys, and Toni Collette, who I normally very much enjoy, and they didn't really tap into her enough, I think, in this film. Now, Ruffalo did a great job of playing an egocentric, belligerent, stubborn and stupid, like, character, right? But the fact that all of his followers, who were the colonists that went with him, were all red hat wearing, and I'm not joking, red hat wearing, and their t-shirts that said like a very similar like "Make America Great Again" kind of phrase on them, and they're like, he's the best ever, we'll follow him anywhere. And then they all do, and they all follow him into space to go start this other colony. And he, even Mark Ruffalo's like character, tried to kind of inflect certain kind of Trumpisms, in the way that he spoke and everything, and the way that people would cater to his ego, and that he would just go, yeah, I am the best, let's go do that, and it was such a caricature of the whole thing, but it was so heavy-handed. It was so over the top as a as the driver for the film that the rest of the movie kind of fell away, and I got pulled out of the suspension of disbelief of what could have been a moderately decent plot line with some good acting and humor portions of a sci-fi film, right? But I got pulled out of it. It made the rest of it kind of bland. I was kind of boring because of the fact that they kept trying to pull you back into this kind of political statement rather than it being a fun film. I would say that Mickey 17 was my least favorite of this director's ventures, and I would say that I give it 5.5 for special, 5.5 toothy end mags, mainly because of the acting of Robert Pattinson, and then Stephen Yeun is in it too, which I really enjoy him.
He's a Walking Dead guy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And he's always fun to watch, but and the special effects were decent enough. So and there was some decent humor points in it, but overall, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you've got nothing else to watch.
Sure.
So, but yeah, 5.5 toothy end mags. But so that's my review of Mickey 17. That being said, it was absolutely overshadowed by what we watched last night.
Fight or flight. Yeah.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, I don't know where Josh Hartnett went off to after he did Penny Dreadful.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the last time I saw him on anything.
Right.
But he seems to be making a bit of a resurgence, because I just watched a movie about him being a killer, and he takes his daughter to a concert.
Yeah,
and that was really good.
Yeah.
You reviewed it, I think,
I did,
a few months ago. We get Josh Hartnett. We get Katie Sackhoff, who's like perpetually the strong female sci-fi character in everything she's ever done. And she's playing like a CIA senior mid-level boss kind of thing in this.
Yeah.
Awesome storyline. Basically, we get a guy who we later learn is like on the run for actions while he was serving some sort of 3-letter agency. Turns out it's the Secret Service. And we start to unfold why that is. Gets called up by his old girlfriend, who's now like one of the bosses in the CIA.
Katie Sackhoff's character, yeah.
We have to turn to you. I know you're in this country.
But he's hiding out in Thailand.
Yeah, so he's in Bangkok. There's an issue in Bangkok. He's the last resort. She calls him to help on the promise that...
Raging drunk at this point.
Raging drunk. On the promise that our guy gets his life back, essentially, and that's the compelling force for his actions or whatever. What unfolds from there is insane. It's like Speed, Snakes on a Plane. What else is it? Bullet Train.
Bullet Train, Kung Fu Hustle.
Kung Fu, like it's insane.
It was Boy Kills World elements kind of. It was a cacophony of awesome.
And it's overtly violent and gory and amazing. It's comical though. It's funny. It's not like
probably
gross.
one of my most favorite Josh Hartnett performances, because the subtlety that he brought, he had us.
I loved him in Lucky Number 11, which I just recently rewatched.
Very
again.
similar in tone as far as his performance, but cranked up a little bit for this. And
there's a scene where he gets high on drugs on accident, and like his facial expressions in that are hilarious. It's just absurd, and it was so much fun. It's like a solid 8 megs for me, because this movie makes no sense, and I love every minute of it. Kind of watch.
Oh yeah.
And so there's no real artistic value to it, other than this is a kick-ass way to kill 2 hours or
turns
hour and
out
a
the
half.
whole plane accidentally, because the person that he's pursuing, it gets leaked that person that he's pursuing is a high level target that nobody knows what that person looks like.
Right.
So they fill a double-decker plane with nothing but assassins who are all bounty hunters looking for the same person that he's told to protect. And it is a riot.
And
it is
later those same bounty hunters get get a hit on him. So like, he's the target for a little while.
Yeah.
It's produced by the same people that did John Wick. So that whole feeling of like the universe we're in is just full of outlandish killers, and like we're the ones on the outside looking in, like it's an ant farm almost of like a different reality.
And then you had like full blown ninjas.
We had ninjas in here for reasons that remain unclear. They're supposed to be like
protectors
of the person, of the target, because she helped them something. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it doesn't need much of an explanation. It's just so much fun. It was shot really well too. Yeah, I thought it was shot really well.
It was fluid. It was gorgeous. The colors and the lighting were all really great.
The transitions for the sequences on that plane reminded me of Scott Pilgrim a lot. Oh yeah, just the way they, go in and out, and it really like there's a whole mess of things going on, but all you're concerned with are the two characters in frame. A lot of those were very reminiscent of Scott Pilgrim, but it was fun. Yeah, I really liked it.
If you liked Boy Kills World, if you like John Wick, if you like Nobody, if you like those type of just like average guy comedically getting his butt kicked, but also taking out dozens and dozens and dozens of people in very, very creative ways, and like a lot of ooh moments, like oh ouch, like over and over again. It was a blast. It was. I agree. I would give it a solid 8 megs on that one. So just because I know it's not going to be for everybody, right? Like if you're not into chainsaw play, I guess you may shy away from it.
Limbs being snapped and broken, and chainsaws and all kinds of stuff.
I happen to be a connoisseur of both of those. Yeah. So, but
I'm a big fan. But that was what we watched last night. So we'll find something else fun to watch too. But I don't think I have much more than that.
You want to go grab the book?
I could. I'll go grab it. So hold the fort down and see.
We got some of the word to read tonight, and I think we're getting close.
We're getting close.
We're getting close to the end. So, and
we're getting close to the end.
I'm excited.
All right. Since you're the guest, you get to help us out with chapter 46. Yeah. Yes. Dude, next week is going to be bomb. There you go.
Awesome. The Night Trial, chapter 46.
Gospel by Gen Z. It's why everyone's listening.
And this is a painting of Christ before the high priest from Gerard von Honthrost. And it's actually really pretty. Yeah. So, but here we go. Chapter 46. POV, the ops doing the most, trying to cancel you. Mm-hmm. And for what? So they brought Jesus to the house of Karen in secret. They put Holy Bro under trial, but didn't live stream it. Mm. And Caiaphas, the main Karen, said, bro, spill the tea. But Jesus said, I've only been live streaming for 3 years straight. Just ask those who stand me respectfully. At that, one of the simp guards threw hands at Holy Bro, but Jesus said, how am I caught lacking? Bring the receipts. Yep. Then they brought in witnesses, but they all were capping hard and threw shade on our boy. But the colors didn't match. So the Karen said, are you the main character? Jesus said, perchance. But the Karen said, you can't just say perchance. Are you the son of the divine G? Jesus said, I'm him. The Karen said, we caught him in 4K blaspheming. Mm-hmm. Let's bring the receipts and get him canceled. So they begin to cover his face, throw hands with him, saying prophecy. O main character, whose hand was thrown, lol. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Peter was cosplaying an NPC at the guard's fire, and they said, bro, didn't you pop my just a minute ago? But Peter said, OMG, I wasn't with Jesus. They said cap. He said ISTG. They said, I don't know what ISTG is. I don't know. Okay. Said, nah, jit lion. But Peter was doing the most and said, for real, I don't know. I don't even know who Jesus is. That's what it is. I don't even know who Jesus is. At the moment, he realized he was caught lacking, as Holy Bro said he would. So he ran and entered his sorry era.
That's what one does.
When you deny Jesus 3
denounce
times.
Christ. Yeah.
So that was chapter 46.
Yeah.
Chapter 47 is Pontius Pilate.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be a hater.
Yeah. So come back next week and we will continue. So,
well, awesome, dude.
Yeah, that was a good one. We went in weird places tonight, but I think it was fun. So
hope you enjoyed the weird places. Reach out to us if you want to.
Hit us up on the socials. Oh, I'm manning the socials, so hit us up there.
Do it to it. All right, guys. We're going to call it a night. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
See you.